Hey there, hi, welcome to the channel. I am Garrett and thank you for spending some time with me today because in this video, we are talking about some of the core principles, the basics of interior design that everyone should know, whether you are a seasoned design veteran, you're starting from scratch, or this is your first time decorating a home. These tips will get your home looking gorgeous. Now, the first thing I always recommend, and I always do, is instead of shopping, I source. What that means is I set parameters, I set boundaries, I try to think of what I want in advance of going out. And this is for major purchases or major pieces in your home. Like if you're doing a big renovation, I want to think about the flooring I want before I go buy it. If I'm decorating and furnishing my house, I want to think about the sofa, the chairs, any of those pieces in advance, some styles. Give me a list of them. Maybe it's a color. That's going to help me on my journey as I'm searching and I'm hunting for things and I'm trying to decide what I want. I'm not just going to walk into a store and be like, there's a sofa here. Great. I need a sofa. That one's cute. I'll take it. Is it though? Will it actually be cute when it's surrounded by everything else? Sourcing helps you get that straightened out and eliminate some of those mistakes that you could easily make. Also, when you're sourcing, you're getting swatches. We're getting swatches of fabrics and materials from all of these companies. You can always order a swatch, and if you can't, don't buy anything from them. Hate to say it to you, but that's a hard line you need to take. When we get swatches, we can compare, we can come up with color schemes, we can look at everything together before we make a decision to purchase. That is sourcing, and that matters so much. Now, I'm also going to think about what's a creative solution or what piece am I looking for here. I'm going to measure that out. I'm going to create a little floor plan to say like, hey, how much room do I need to get around this so I can decide on how big that's going to be, whether it's a console table or a sofa, a coffee table, accent chairs, that sort of thing. I need to know the size of that, and I'm not going to say it has to be exactly 98 inches. I'm gonna say it needs to be between 98 inches and I could go 112 if I don't want side tables, but if I do, then I need to go 98 or smaller, but I don't wanna go any smaller than, 87 inches. You know what, come up with your own dimensions depending on what that piece is, be it a sofa, a dining table, chairs, whatever, okay? Set a limit, a high and a low for the dimensions you need, so that way you have a little bit of play and we can come up with some things, we can eliminate some stuff. Make sure you are sourcing, not shopping. We shop for accessories and decor, you shop for artwork. That's all great. We source for the major pieces in a space. Another piece of design advice I always think you should stick to, it's so important, is matching the scale. And that's about matching the scale of the room and all of the pieces together. And there's a lot of people that will give you some like basic pointers and tips and say like, make sure the rug covers, this, or all the furniture's on the rug. Yeah, that's a question about matching the scale. Scale is the proportions, the dimensions, how something physically looks and feels in a space. Is it big, bulky, and heavy, or is it light and delicate? We want to know those things, and then I want to match them in the space. It also has to do with verticality, or those elements that we're bringing upwards. We want to maybe enhance the scale of some things. That's why we hang drapery near the ceiling, because we're enhancing all of the vertical lines that are making the ceilings look taller. Do the same thing with artwork. Hanging it all at the same height, or at a height that at least makes a little sense, is going to make the ceilings look taller. It may even make walls look bigger and other furniture pieces look smaller. Those are great tips to remember in a smaller space. Matching the scale of a sofa and an accent chair. That's a good thing to keep in mind, because if we get an accent chair that's very open and delicate, as where the sofa is a little bulkier and heavier, well, the accent chair is going to be like non-existent. You're not even going to see it. So I want something that has a little bit of a beefy feeling to it, and we love that for that piece because it won't get lost. Now, I know all of that's a little bit difficult and there's a lot to digest there, but if you need some additional decorating help to answer any of your specific design questions or dilemmas, I'm at your service. You can always book a one-on-one virtual design consultation with me. You can show me around your home and I can answer some of those questions for you. Check out the link in the description box down below to book with me, or go to intro.co/GarrettLeChic. Now, another great decorating tip to keep in mind, and something you can use in a couple of different ways, is to make sure you're keeping clear and clean pathways and walking spaces in your home. There's a whole lot of reasons for this. One is egress. We have to get in and out of a house. Okay, it needs to be safe so that, if something happens, we can get out in an emergency situation. Love that for you. The other reason is it makes the space feel more comfortable. when you can freely move through it. I don't have to duck and dive and dodge out of furniture pieces. We like that. But most importantly, it's going to make your space feel bigger and larger and more open to have clean and clear pathways and access points into furniture arrangements. And what all that means is basically, I want to walk into a space and be able to see where I'm gonna walk to go sit on the sofa. Having a space that feels really open that way is going to make your home feel larger. There are exceptions to that rule, of course, and the number one exception to everything is, will you use the space? Is it more accommodating for you to enjoy it? And then you might choose something different that makes more sense to use your home and actually function in it. For example, you may want to have your sofa directly in front of the television so you can watch it instead of having like two sofas flanking each other. Sometimes that makes more sense, but let's make sure the pathway and access points to get into that arrangement are clean and clear so your home feels larger, bigger, and more open. Your space may look big or your space may look small, but it's all about what sort of access and pathways do you have to have that limit the furniture arrangement. Don't think because a space looks smaller that you can't do something amazing there, because it honestly couldn't be further from the truth. Another trick designers use to decorate your home and make it look stunning and beautiful, and you should be incorporating too, is what we call emphasis. It's one of the core principles of design and one of my favorites. Like scale is one, emphasis is another. And that's because emphasis is kind of versatile in the way we use it and what you can do. To create emphasis is kind of obvious, but I want to take that and apply it to a focal point of some sort. And a focal point doesn't have to be, oh, a fireplace in the middle of the room. It can be that we're distracting from something else. If you have a smaller space, for example, I may want to use a more contrasting drapery hardware, a curtain rod. That way, my eye goes to that and I'm distracted from everything that's happening down below. Emphasis could also be painting your window frames black because they draw a little more attention to them and you see more of that light and that great view that draws our attention and creates emphasis there and distracts from somewhere else. If you don't have any of those amazing features, let's start playing around with bright, bold, and beautiful color to create emphasis in a space where there is none, and I love that too. Emphasis can also be created using a furniture layout or arrangement. What do I want you to focus on when you enter that space? Is it a large piece of artwork, or is it the sofa that I want you to be on? Maybe I want to distract you from seeing the TV as you enter, so I do something else. Create that emphasis, create a focal point, or distract from something you don't want to see to make your home look and feel comfortable and beautiful, especially when you first enter a space. And that allows you to have a space that you love, is gorgeous, is magazine worthy, but can still function beautifully for the way you want to by distracting from some of the things you don't want to see. And speaking of emphasis, I want to take a moment to emphasize how important it is for you to hit that subscribe button and join us, become a part of our GarrettLeChic family. We would love to have you as a part of our community, so absolutely hit that little button for me. I'd also greatly appreciate if everyone watching could give this video a like, and if you're feeling a little extra generous, please hype this video. Just hit that little button. It helps share it out there and rank it against others on YouTube's platform. We can help save the world from bad design one home at a time. All I need is a little bit of your help. Another trick designers use all of the time is we focus on using creative solutions, because not every home is built the same and not all of them are designed, the floor plans of them, the layouts, or the uses people have of those spaces are the same. And so what I mean by creative solutions is sometimes we'll come up with something that maybe you don't expect to see in that space, or something that is just a little different that enhances it in some way. An example I've shared before a million times is banquettes. I love a banquette because if you have a small space, we can then offset the dining area. So it's not centered in the room and it creates a little bit more of a walkway. That's a great creative solution for your home and any space, quite frankly. I love a banquette. So like darling and cute, but I think can be super elevated too. One of my favorite creative solutions to use are actually curves. Now I know curves are big and popular in design right now, and that's a good thing, but that's, that design detail isn't something I actually care about, or I'm like, oh, it's so elevated, I'm using curves in this space, I have to have it. Curves are really great because if you have a tighter space, a rounded corner on something means that we have increased flow and movement through the space. And that's physical flow. Like we can walk through a space, we get a little bit more access. What I mean by that is like with a sectional sofa, if we put a square coffee table with that, you're not getting into the sofa. Like you have a square corner in front of you, you're gonna bump your shin on it, and then it's all just downhill from there. But a round table gives us just a little bit of extra space where we can actually get in, and you really don't lose much of the tabletop surface there. So a round coffee table and a tighter living room, 10 out of 10, love that. If you have a smaller dining space, a round dining table, oh, excellent, amazing, I love that, fantastic. But you can also use curves in an interesting way when it comes to seating. Sometimes I'll do this with a barrel chair in a living room. If we have a floating arrangement that people have to move around, this frees up a little bit of extra space without losing some of the depth of the seat that we would otherwise have to lose to make the living room arrangement smaller. Sometimes I'll do this on a sofa. I recently had a client who the space is just a little tighter and they kind of have to have a big walkway, a space for a piano, all of this stuff. And they're like, where do we put a sofa? Like, should we just get a love seat? And I'm like, no, that's horrible. We don't need a love seat. We need a curved sectional. We need a sectional that has a chaise that's curved so that you can actually get it in. We can sit it at an angle. We can bring in some accent chairs that are movable, and it creates a versatile space for them to use. I use that same principle on another client who just has a tight space in her home where, you know, it's like she has to get to a door next to a sofa. We have to reach across it. So like, let's use a curved sectional that doesn't have a back on that portion of it. I love a piece of furniture with curves to it because it softens the space and it frees up some of that much needed flooring area that sometimes we have to walk through. So don't be afraid of creative solutions that you may not expect, and you may need to ask a designer for their opinion on it too, because sometimes those creative solutions require a lot of creativity to come up with, even if they're relatively simple. One of the biggest issues I have with design, and one of the reasons people just feel uncomfortable or like their spaces are incomplete, is because they're not using a tight enough color scheme. I mean, you have to have a really strong color scheme, especially in a smaller space, because if it's very busy, if you just have a lot of stuff, you don't really have rhyme or reason to it, it's going to look cluttered, messy, and busy, and you're not going to be able to focus. But using a tighter color scheme where we narrow down the amount of colors we bring into the space, like 2 to 3 of them, really allows us to enhance that space and see it easily. There's not that visual static that a lot of homes have, and it helps to heighten the design of the space by reducing the number of colors you have. Sometimes you don't need patterns, you need solids, and that can be a way to tighten up a color scheme as well. Sometimes we need to have extra colors, just a little bit of fun somewhere else. Well, let's go with solid colors that have a little bit more depth for the main furniture pieces, and then we can have a little bit more fun with colorful, bright, and fun artwork in that space. There's all sorts of tips and tricks you can use. I always like to start with something. Maybe I start with a rug, maybe I start with a pillow, and I pull colors from there so I have a foundation to lean back on if I need to, and I can have a very cohesive color scheme. It makes your home look more elevated, more luxurious, more thoughtful and intentional, and it just makes it look more designed rather than decorated, or I guess I should say furnished, because that's all you're doing when you bring a bunch of random things into the space. You can also take a look at those things you have, because maybe you don't need to replace everything. What's one piece that's gonna bring all of those colors together? Maybe it's a rug, maybe it's a piece of artwork, maybe it's a fabric on a pillowcase. What's gonna tie all of those color schemes together to make them feel intentional and make sense? Sometimes we need to lose colors from a space, and so maybe that accent pillow isn't giving what you think it needs to give, and it's time to let it go. Try to narrow down the colors you're using in a space, because they can easily overwhelm any area in your home, big or small, and focus in on having a really strong but tight color scheme so that we get that cohesive feeling. And then let's start incorporating some of those colors into other spaces of your home to make sure we're working on and we have a really strong flow from space to space. You want your home to feel like it's a cohesive design, even if areas feel specifically different than each other. That's a really good thing. Just make sure we have that flow, we have that connection, that cohesivity that your home needs, and you can use a tighter color scheme to achieve that. Oh, hi, Arden. Well, there you have it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure you check out this video here all about some finishes you should never bring into your home. Avoid them so your home always feels elegant, timeless, and sophisticated, and I will see you over there, and I'm sure Arden will see you there too. Thanks for watching. You think I have a treat, don't you?